So I turn back, and almost as if it's in slow motion, I see my $4,000 film camera falling to the ground. Oh, fuck. Welcome to Roaming, a new series here where I bring you along my travels around the world as I look to capture my bucket list images. Whether it's portrait, fashion, or street photography, there's so much self-discovery to be had when you exercise your passion abroad. With this series, I hope to share the process, passion, and soul of that experience with you. In this episode, we fly to Mumbai, a city I've never been to before, and hope to create deeper roots in. In late 2019, I'm sitting in a coffee shop with my friend Sean Vincent Paul, and he tells me he has this opportunity to travel across India and perform in several cities. He looks at me and says, if he can cover the cost of my trip, would I be down to go there and capture everything? I think this is the closest I've ever been to having a heart attack out of joy. If you're a photographer going to Mumbai for the first time, let me just tell you, the sun just hits different there. One of the byproducts of the smog and pollution outside of bronchitis and potentially lung cancer is that it acts like a giant softbox for the sun. So whether it's sunrise or sunset, you're getting remarkable images no matter what. Just point your camera, you could probably even throw it in auto, and you're gonna get a beautiful shot. There's multiple times where I'd be waking up my boys early in the morning, or we'd go looking for the sunset and capture portraits every chance we got. For this trip specifically, I took about 6 cameras with me. The 2 that really were my main drivers were the Fujifilm X-Pro3 for digital work and the Leica M6 for film work. Now, I'll talk about that one a little bit later. But the X-Pro3 on this trip, it really allowed me to fall much deeper in love with it. This camera was on my shoulder every single day, and thank God for its durability and that titanium plating, because I don't know if it would have survived with any other material on it. And if you're a traveler, look for a camera that has dust and weather resistance. I think it's a must-have.
Love is love. Love is love.
My X-Pro3 went through the ringer, and I think it even has a little bit of PTSD with respect to all the dust that's there, and the on-off switch and the exposure dial, they'll remind you of that. But one thing's for sure, it did not and will not die. I could lean on this camera and it would deliver every single time. And one thing I talked about before, but I'll say it again, that hybrid viewfinder, it is a difference maker. Really, to be able to go into an electronic viewfinder and see your exposure, but then switch back to the optical viewfinder and just focus on composition. That's all I would be looking for. This, in the industry, is a game changer. And look, if you're following me on Instagram or even my YouTube channel for that matter, I post a lot of color pictures, but I prefer to shoot in black and white. I look to see just the lighting, the way the shadows are falling, and focus on composition. I think it allows me to process it better. But when I was in India, I just had to shoot in color. The texture, the types of colors, the gradient there, it demands that you shoot it and capture it in color. Oh, and that classic negative film simulation that Fuji just released, it couldn't have come at a better time. That film simulation in that destination made for an amazing pairing. The slight greens and the shadows and being able to boost the blues just a little bit made for these remarkable images out of camera. It's one of these amazing feelings to have as a photographer where you can just go, shoot an image, and it's great right out of the camera that you can share it instantaneously or share it with your client instantaneously. And anyone that says that you shouldn't shoot JPEG can just fuck off, because this camera was producing bangers right out of the camera. And it goes back to something that I've been saying on this channel for a long time, is more than the gear, invest in your craft, invest in your learning, your ability to capture good images, and your technique. That's gonna make the difference. And that, paired with the right tool for the job, the right film simulation in this case, allows you to just have a much better workflow. But if you can get some classic negative in your lifestyle, I highly recommend it. large part of this trip was also captured with my Leica M6, where I was shooting in film and dedicated a good amount to that. And using these two in tandem really showcased where each one excelled. For the Leica, it was equal parts the process and the pause. Capturing a good image on Leica M6 requires your attention. It demands you pay attention to all the externalities and compose a picture. And that process, well, it's thrilling, right? I mean, if you're too fast, you f up the shot. If you're too slow, you miss the moment. It's this beautiful dance between instinct and spontaneity that's essentially at odds with each other to create this friction in the moment, and navigating that, well, it's a thrilling feeling. Now, when did I decide to pull out my Leica and use that instead of my Fujifilm? Well, it's those moments of pause where I saw an opportunity to actually compose the image in the most literal way, whether it's me waiting for the moment to line up and people to come into the frame, or it was something so unique that had to be captured on film. It was these moments where I could just allow an image to compose. Contrast this with the Fuji X-Pro 3, where I can be more assertive, I can be more dynamic, I can lean on its strengths to capture the shot and sometimes will a shot into existence. I should also mention that I was doing this photo shoot and I wanted to capture some shots on film, and I was using my Leica M6, and I set it down as I was switching between cameras. I put it on a chair, thought it was safe. Definitely not safe. Our model, she was walking by, knocked it unknowingly, totally not her fault, it was my fault. And I looked back because I had this instinct, and almost as if it was in slow motion, I see my $4,000 film camera falling to the ground. And this thing is built like a tank, but it fell on exactly the weakest point, which is the wheel to rewind your film. It's known that this is the only weak point. Luckily, it wasn't expensive to fix. It cost me about $100. The only downside is that I could only fix it when I got back home. So moral of the story is make sure your camera is always, always, always in a safe place.
Bang, 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 ho! Bang, 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 ho, ho!
When it comes to the capture process, listen, it's not about having the latest, greatest gear. It's about having the right tool for you. What allows you to capture the shot that you're going for. And really, in my eyes, it's out of the way. It should have the critical features that you need, but it shouldn't feel like it's there. It should almost be invisible. It should allow you to be closer to your art. With respect to cameras, define what you need and move from there. And listen, I talk a lot about gear on my channel because I believe I have the insight and empathy to give people value when they're looking to make a purchasing decision. But I'll be the first of many to say this. You don't need a new camera to create great art. What you need is purpose, and that'll be the compass that guides all your other decisions. Mumbai is such a great city to interact with your environment. You can really walk up to a lot of people and just dialogue with them and ask for their story. And more often than not, I can interact with my surroundings, the beautiful colors, textures, people, and share dialogue with strangers, and something that really makes for a great travel experience. And listen, you have to have some semblance of street smarts, so I'm imagining you have that before you go there. But again, just a wonderful city to be a photographer in. There was this one moment where we saw this laborer. He was, I guess, done his work for the day, and he was sitting down, and went up to him, had this striking face. One of these faces where it tells a story without him even uttering a word. So I went up to him and asked him, can we take your portrait? And at first he said no, because he thought we were trying to charge him for a picture. And I explained, no, I want to take your picture. It just had this amazing look to him. So he agreed, he was happy to do it. We sat down and I lined it up, try to get that composure, try not to stress out, capture the shot, and let me tell you, this doesn't happen often, but it was one of these pictures that I was truly proud of. I look at this picture and it captures so much of India in a single shot. The texture of his skin, the stoicism in his mouth, the hope in his eyes. Man, I was just so taken back by being able to capture this. I say this often, and It's hard for me to be satisfied or to stay satisfied with my pictures. Really, there's only a handful that actually crack that for me. But this was one of those shots. And listen, my art is my art, you know? I'll look at it differently than the viewers. And ultimately, when I put my art out there, whether it's in a book, in prints, or on Instagram, whatever it may be, I lose a lot of power. You guys get to decide what you see. The viewer ultimately decides what it means to them. But for me, this is one of those images that really stands out. Something I'm gonna cherish for a really long time. And man, if I can capture one of these a year, that's a big win. We're here now in the midst of a global pandemic that's forever gonna change how we navigate our environment, especially until a vaccine becomes available. Which is why my trip to Mumbai feels strange. Listen, I'm happy and humble that I was able to go and get out just in time, but I can't help but ache for the people that are still there, that have it far worse than we do in the West. I go through the images and the business owners in the crowded markets and the kids going to school and the people that helped us along the way. I can't help but feel for them and what they're going through at this time. And that's why if you're watching this and you take any guidance from this video or this series, it's really, especially if you're a photographer, be a conscious traveler. Talk to people where you can, give value where you can, listen to their stories. These are simple things that don't cost us anything and can make a profound positive impact in someone else's life. As creators, we have this ability to impact the environment around us in a positive way, to really make someone's day. And especially during these times, we should pay more attention to that. And if you do that enough, and if you do that regularly, man, it's just good for the soul.